This is extremely expensive. Why does it go up? Because they create pesticide-resistant weeds. This is just a self-perpetuating cycle. The more pesticides, the GMOs are pesticide tolerant, and their selling point is, oh, we can just throw a lot of pesticides on and get rid of the weeds, and, piece of cake. It makes it really easy, but it doesn't work that way. It's actually created pesticide-resistant weeds, which then require more pesticides, which create more resistant weeds. So it's a never-ending cycle, and it's great if you are a supplier of pesticides, which, guess what? Monsanto is. This is all a marketing scheme for Roundup, which Roundup Ready. So we need to disrupt that marketing scheme. And, it puts farmers out of business. It has caused over 200,000 farmers in India to commit suicide because they go into debt and they have no way out of it. So these guys are corporate criminals. They're climate criminals, and they are food criminals. And they ought to be in jail, not walking the street. If we can hold tobacco companies accountable and fine them millions and millions of dollars for the health damage they have done, we can certainly hold GMO companies accountable for the pesticide, environmental, food security, and health damage that they are doing. And then finally, it corrupts our democracy. These guys have spent $250 million on campaign contributions and lobbying in the last decade. $250 million in order to buy the policies that permit them to make a killing. And literally, they are making a killing. They spent another $250 million in the last 2 years alone on advertising to convince people that GMOs are harmless. But you know what? It hasn't worked. Because 91% of people want to put a label on all GMO food so we can stop eating it and put it out of business. And then just finally, about the democracy attack. This is an attack on our basic freedoms. This just sort of lists that whole litany, which I won't take time to go through except to mention. This is about the attacks on whistleblowers. Attacking whistleblowers is an attack on the freedom of the press. Because the press, we have a right to know what's going on in our government, especially when our government is violating international law and human rights. And Bradley Manning, bless his heart and his soul, for waking up not only America, but Iraq. That's why the troops came home, not because of Barack Obama. It was because Bradley Manning alerted the people of Iraq to what was really going on. That video that went viral about, what was it called?
Collateral murder.
What was it?
Collateral murder video.
Collateral murder, that's right, thank you. That was the video that Manning outed that showed how people were being targeted mercilessly by remote pilots through drones, actually, who were killing these people. And it really roused public opinion in Iraq so that the U.S. Contract to be able to put soldiers in Iraq and hold them harmless, they refused to renew it. They refused to renew it. And that's why Obama had to bring the troops home. So that was thanks to Bradley Manning and Julian Assange for making it public. So that's why whistleblowers are critical to freedom of the press, and that is our First Amendment right. The right to protest, we have a lot to protest about, and it's not going to get better by itself. So we're going to need to keep protesting, and that means we need to vigorously defend our First Amendment rights, our right to protest. And we shouldn't be thrown in jail or subject to these vindictive and punitive fines and bail for asserting our right to protest. We do have that right, and we're gonna need it more and more going forward. Our basic freedoms, the presumption of innocence, that has been long-standing, the so-called habeas corpus, that you have to be accused of a crime and proven guilty in order to be kept in jail. You should not be punished or assassinated, without being accused of a crime and found guilty of it. So, these are some of the basic freedoms that the NDAA and also the AUMF, the
Authorization.
Authorization
Military force.
for the use of military force. Thank you, in 2001. And that's what Obama is, basing his right to assassinate you on. And he has that right to kill anybody, anywhere, anytime, if you are considered an imminent threat. What does imminent mean? According to international law, imminent means it's like happening right now. There is no time to think about it. There is no time to plan. It is happening right now. That's what imminent means. In Barack Obama's mind, imminent means you don't agree with us. Imminent means you're saying the wrong thing, like the U.S. citizen, the cleric who was assassinated. When he, if there were issues there, he should have been and could readily have been tried. He could have been tried. He should not have been assassinated. And the same is true, actually, for Osama bin Laden. He was unarmed. His facility was unarmed. He could, and according to international law, he should have been captured and tried. As was done, for example, in the Nuremberg trials, where many more people died than 1 or 2 or 3,000. The Nuremberg trials tried people where millions of people were murdered. And they were, they had the benefit of a trial under international laws. We still have those laws. Either we are a nation of laws and a world of laws, or we are not. And under Obama, we are increasingly becoming a lawless and unjust planet. And this too, we can stop. So let me just quickly run through how we are going to fix it with a Green New Deal. So basically a Green New Deal, have people heard about this? Do you know about it? A few. Okay. So a Green New Deal is like the deal that got us out of the Great Depression. 3 months after the New Deal was started in the Great Depression, 4 million jobs have been created. Here we are, 5 years, and they only had like 12 million unemployed at the time because it was a smaller population. So within 3 months, they created millions of jobs. We can create millions of jobs right now too. And that's what the Green New Deal does. It basically creates 25 million jobs. It jumpstarts the green economy because those are green jobs. And at the same time, it puts a halt to climate change. And equally important, it makes wars for oil obsolete. So, as part of the Green New Deal, and Roosevelt had this too, FDR also called for an economic Bill of Rights. That means a right to a job for everybody who is ready and willing to work. You have a job at a living wage, in fact. That we will end student debt, that free public higher education is a human right. We need to bail out the students and make public higher education free. And we need housing as a human right. We need to end those foreclosures. And start building some affordable housing, bring back public housing. There are many ways we can solve the housing problem. We need to break up the banks and establish public banks. Separate the commercial from the investment. That was one of the pieces of the New Deal. And start taxing Wall Street. Why should Wall Street be the only sector of the economy that doesn't pay a sales tax? Most Americans pay a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% sales tax, Wall Street, the richest sector of the economy, gets off without paying any. So, we used to have one actually up until the 1960s, and Kennedy phased it out because the economy was in such good shape while we were taxing Wall Street. So let's bring that Wall Street tax back and get the economy in good shape and stop the Wall Street speculators from gambling and losing and making us bail them out. We can fix that all. And all that, we need to take back the Fed as well from the private banks and get control over our monetary policy so that it's working for everyday people, not for the banks. A bunch of democracy reforms, I'll just name a couple really quickly. Get money out of politics, we can do that. And then people say, well, oh my God, then we'll have to pay for it. Well, the deal is, if you make the public airways free, like they should be, because they're our airways, then it doesn't cost nothing. The big cost in political campaigns is the cost of TV advertising time. So you make the public airwaves free, and guess what? The bottom drops out of the cost of political campaigns. So we can do that. We can have fair ballot access so that it's not just the two corrupt corporate political parties that dominate the discussion. We need to get alternatives on the ballot. And as our host tonight here at the museum was saying, this is something that libertarians and Greens are fighting together to try to open up our ballot access and give people real choices. That's what democracy looks like. And when people say, oh, I'm afraid to vote for a third party because I might help the campaign, the guy I don't want to help. That whole thing, it goes away in a minute. First of all, it's a false fear, and I'll go back to that. But it goes away in a minute when you have a ranked choice voting system.
Yes.
That's also called instant runoff voting, etc. Whatever you want to call it. It just means when you go in and you're voting for mayor or governor, for offices that just have one winner, you rank your choices. So if you want to vote for an underdog, that's your number one. And if you want your safety choice as number two, you rank it number two. And the way that the ranked choice voting works is that if your first choice loses, your vote is automatically reassigned to your second choice. It's like, wow, why are they keeping this a secret? They're keeping it a secret because they don't want you to know that we can actually solve this problem. The first time I ran for office in Massachusetts, we worked with some members of the legislature to actually propose a bill that would create ranked choice voting so that nobody could blame me and the Greens during our run for governor in 2002 if the Republicans got elected. They could have fixed it. We filed the bill in plenty of time that they could have had an insurance policy ready. Why did they not want it? Because they knew if they gave people permission to actually vote their values, they would be out of a job and we would be in our government. So don't let them intimidate you with that fear-mongering. That's what it is. It is a fear campaign that's been engineered to keep you from standing up and using your power. We do have the power, but you know what? We got to be able to stand up for it and not back down when they say, oh, but you're going to make terrible things happen. The reality is the politics of fear has made all those terrible things happen. All the reasons that we were told why we had to be good little boys and girls and just follow the marching orders, and vote for the lesser evil, because we didn't want an expanding war, we didn't want more free trade agreements, sending our jobs overseas, undermining our wages here at home. We didn't want these terrible climate policies that were going to melt down the climate. What have we gotten, in the droves? All of those things that we were afraid of. The real engine here of social change and of progressive movement forward, the real engine is our power as we the people. people, we got to be able to stand up and use it and not blink. You know, when we're on the firing line, we got to stand up and say, that's why we're here. And recognize that the difference between the lesser and the greater evil is really window dressing. It's window dressing. It's not, there may be some differences. This isn't to say there are none. But those differences are not big enough to save your life, to save your job, to save the climate, to save our food system, to save our colleges and our local schools and our housing. They absolutely agree on the devastation that's being heaped on all those areas. So it's up to us to stand up and show the way forward. Just quickly to point out that the Green New Deal is absolutely affordable. The cost studies suggest it would be around $500 billion to create 24 million jobs. And $500 billion is less than the cost of the first stimulus package under Obama in 2009, which was said to create maybe 2 million jobs, maybe 3. Most of them came and went for much more than what this would cost, because they were mainly giving tax breaks rather than creating jobs. Tax breaks do not create jobs. It's a very inefficient way to create jobs. This would create them directly and would actually jumpstart the economy, start the revenue coming back in through the tax base. So this is a real, how do we pay for it? $500 billion we could pay for simply by downsizing the military, because that's costing us $1 trillion a year. Cut it in half. And we've got plenty of money to create the Green New Deal. Tax Wall Street, you have, probably as much coming in. So we got money to do all the other things we need to do. And enact Medicare for all, that too will save us trillions of dollars. That's the money saver, not the money cost. So cost is no object here. Cost is on the side of moving to a Green New Deal. Let me just skip through some of this other stuff to make the point that young people really are the driver here. We talk about economic justice and racial justice. There's another kind of justice. Climate justice we hear about, and food justice. There's generational justice, because all of those injustices are being heaped on young people right now, who are taking it really on the chin for the cost of education, for the debt, for the lack of jobs, for the climate and food crisis that's really coming down heavy on their shoulders. So that is, I think, why we are seeing young people really standing up now and taking the lead in a way which is so incredibly exciting. Last comment here about the politics of fear. We need to replace that with the politics of courage. And in fact, it's the politics of courage that has always created social change. That means courage in the street, but it also means courage in the voting booth. Don't let them talk you out of the power of your vote. Because it's a social movement combined with a political movement that really creates an unstoppable force for change. It's not having a lesser evil in power who will try to take little baby steps forward here and there, maybe while they're taking gigantic leaps backwards towards climate change and Wall Street bailouts and all the rest. It's really about standing up and insisting on the broad, really principled changes that we need now. So when did we see this happen? We saw this happen during the abolition of slavery, when you had a social movement on the ground to abolish slavery, which was absolutely incredible, and you also had political parties, in particular the Liberty Party, which was, a real driving force to raise this issue that we actually needed to have our elected officials, government, step up on the right side here. And the Liberty Party drove that agenda into the Republican Party, which was a grassroots third party at the time. And at times of great social upheaval, sometimes third parties get catapulted up. So just be on the lookout for that. And don't be shy about standing up for what's right, like the Liberty Party did, like the Women's Party did. And here you see an agenda for the Women's Party about, why women were entitled to equal economic rights, rights over their family, rights to vote, which was at the core of the women's suffrage movement. With, hunger strikes, pickets, demonstrations. A lot of people went to jail, and here's a sign that said, freedom for women to vote against the party that this donkey represents. So there have been spoiler parties all along who dared to stand up, and because they dared, they actually moved us forward. And finally, we especially saw this during the labor movement, in the 1900s, 10s, 20s, and 30s, when you